Here with this week's hottest stories in the investment world, this is Zach's Friday Finish Line.
Hello and welcome to the Zach's Friday Finish Line. I am Ryan McQueeney, a content writer here at Zach's, along with one of our editors, Maddy Johnson.
Hello, today is Friday, January 5th, and we're here to recap this week's biggest stories from the investment and financial world, also trying to not freeze to death. At least we're not suffering through a bomb cyclone.
Yes.
We want to start by wishing all of our listeners a very happy new year. Hopefully you made some awesome resolutions and are trying to stick to them as best as you can. And best of luck to everyone toughing it out through, the crazy weather going out literally everywhere.
I had never heard of a bomb cyclone before.
Yeah, that's like a legitimate weather term.
I think that they just make these things up every 4 or 5 years to keep us on our toes. Because
true.
polar vortex, I feel like we're still getting used to. And now that's like every year. It's like, are we getting a polar vortex? Are we not getting a polar vortex?
Yeah, I think Chicago, though, is almost out of it. This weekend's supposed to be like a little balmy.
Yeah, low 30s. Might go to the beach.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Bomb cyclone. I bet we hear it next few winters. There's several more bomb cyclones.
True. I mean, it's snowing in Charleston. It's snowing in Florida. It's literally warmer in Alaska than it is in Florida right now.
Doesn't make any
crazy.
sense. My brain doesn't. My brain is confused by that. My brain doesn't operate on an understanding where I get weather on that level. So whatever. So yeah, we've been in and out of the office here the past few weeks. Holiday schedule is obviously a little bit crazy. We're happy to be back and pumping out some regular episodes for you now. And this week we'll be talking about a few of our favorite topics, including a bit of wildly speculative merger chatter that has already been going on in 2018, which is always fun. Yes.
Some guy is, just I feel like they're just bored already.
It is what it was this past week was New Year's. The last couple weeks of 2017 is 2017 recap season. So then the first week of 2018 you get out all the 2018 predictions. So it's prediction season, which means lots of merger chatter.
Always. I guess it always is merger chatter this time of year. But before we get to any of that, Ryan is going to fill us in on a rather dramatic cybersecurity related issue that emerged earlier this week.
Yeah, definitely dramatic. Just if not for the names involved, definitely because of the scope of the situation. According to a report that was released this week from the UK's The Register, Intel and the affected software developers have been scrambling to fix a hardware issue that could let attackers access security keys, passwords, and cached files. The bug is apparently present in nearly every Intel CPU made within the last decade. Spoiler alert on that one, Maddy, that is a lot of computer processors.
Yeah, I feel like if you have like a PC.
Yeah.
Any PC, if you're a PC customer.
Made within the last decade.
I am.
So the root of the problem is kind of, I'm trying to dumb things down a little bit. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but it's a bit complex for those of us who don't speak processor lingo.
Describe it for the average Joe.
I'll try.
That'd be great.
I'll try. So the problem is a fundamental design flaw related to kernels, and in the context of computing.
Not popcorn kernels.
No. In fact, completely different. They share almost no similarities. So in the context of computing, the kernel is a core component of the operating system that is tasked with managing the communication between hardware and software. So right now what we're seeing is, and kind of how the story emerged was kind of looking at this happening, is we're seeing Linux programmers and Microsoft employees working on Windows patches, like desperately scrambling to come up with patches to fix the bug, which is stemming from a hardware design issue. So it's Intel's hardware that's the problem, and the way to fix it is for the software developers to patch their software. But the issue, the real the real concerning thing for people who have Intel hardware is that the patches necessary to fix the bug actually move the kernel into an entirely different address space, which makes the communication process, again, kind of managing that communication between hardware and software, it makes that communication process more time consuming and less efficient. According to the Register's report, the Register estimates that these patches could result in a 5% to 30% slowdown depending on the task and processor model. So we're talking about 5 to 30% performance slowdown on nearly every Intel CPU made within the last decade is kind of the worst case scenario estimates right now coming out of the Register's official report. Microsoft has an upcoming Patch Tuesday. It's kind of that's literally what it's called next week on Tuesday, and we're expecting to see a patch for this issue. Linux is in open source software, so there's a team of developers working on it now. But what the Register discovered was that there was an embargo. Intel had put a press embargo on talking about this issue. So when the initial report came out, details were very, very scarce because this Linux team and Microsoft employees just couldn't talk about it. So what's interesting is, of course, it has an effect on Intel stock. Shares of Intel are down nearly 5.5% since the news was reported in the middle of the week. But really, the interesting trend has been how Intel competitors have benefited. So AMD shares were the big beneficiary here. AMD up nearly 18% since the company announced its own CPUs are not affected by the flaw. And I think AMD's CEO used the word messy to describe Intel's security flaw. And I knew you would like that one.
Hashtag messy.
Yeah, she hashtag messied them. And
wow.
Yeah, so that's fun. So now not only is it a major security issue that's going to have performance repercussions on Intel devices.
That was a shady
We've
response.
got a little bit of we've got a little bit of CEO drama going down too. We got some public call outs. We got a little bit of drama that maybe Intel's CEO sold some shares just before this news was released.
Oh, no.
So we've got the added layer that we didn't even get into today, but we have an added layer to this story where we have CEO drama playing out in public, which we also, of course, love. So
absolutely,
give
me the actual popcorn kernel.
This is a story to keep your eye on as the weeks go forward, or as the weeks go by. We got Patch Tuesday coming up next week, so we'll see what Microsoft's response to it is, and we'll see what Intel has to say on the record. Again, just want to credit the UK-based publication, The Register, for that original story. Some really great reporting there. Now we're going to move on to another really interesting story. This one a little bit funner, a little bit cooler, a little bit less scary. Coming in regards to a new treatment from a small biotech firm.
Yeah. So Spark Therapeutics, it trades under the ticker ONCE, ONCE. Just recently announced a new gene therapy that is designed to treat a rare inherited retinal disease that can cause blindness. So it was approved by the FDA, and it's called Luxturna. It costs just a small $425,000 per eye, or combined for $850,000 for both eyes.
They don't give you a 2-for-1 deal there.
Not 2-for-1. Though Spark did reveal payment and access programs to help with the astronomical price tag. There are roughly 1,000 to 2,000 patients in the U.S. who suffer from this kind of inherited retinal disease. It's caused by a mutant gene, not X-Men related.
Yeah.
Just, your normal, typical, crazy mutant gene.
Not superpowers.
No superpowers in blindness.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But since Luxturna is a gene therapy, it involves the delivery of a healthy copy of a gene using an altered virus in order to make up for one that is deficient and causes a disease, in this case, retinal dystrophy. Luxturna is delivered to patients just once. So this is where the controversy comes in. So since it's delivered just once, and it costs $850,000, people are just like, what? Excuse me? What?
This is the whole thing with that, the whole gene therapy industry, which is, has really been taken off even back to a couple years ago, is you have these like really elaborate, complex treatments that is definitely not like as simple as taking a drug or going through a cycle of drugs or getting a prescription filled or whatever. Yeah, and then the companies like a Spark Therapeutics probably spend so much money on trials and whatnot, and with only 1,000 to 2,000 patients suffering in the U.S., you kind of have to, how do you make that money back, I guess, is what the question is.
But the signs look promising. So in the clinical studies, patients' sight was examined based on their ability to navigate an obstacle course, but doing so at low light. And those who received the treatment, instead of probably like a placebo, yeah, they showed huge signs of improvement in doing so and in doing the obstacle at low light after a 1-year period. But the focus now has been on the high price of the drug, and Spark's management has felt it necessary to defend the cost publicly. In a phone interview with Bloomberg, Spark CEO Jeff Marazzo said that, quote, "We believe that this price reflects not only the breakthrough, life-altering value of one-time Luxturna, but it will enable us to continue to invest and build on the revolutionary science that supports not only Luxturna, but the rest of our pipeline," unquote. So
kind of touching on some of those issues, definitely.
And Express Scripts, which is a pharmacy benefits management company, they also came out in support of the drug and the price. Actually, they said it's like, well, it's kind of it's a good price point.
Sure.
So I guess if we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And we're gonna start to see, as these gene therapy treatments, as the number of these gene therapy treatments increases, the approved ones, we're going to start seeing these headlines more and more about these kind of astronomical prices for these one-time treatments. But I think, the counter argument is what we've said is the research and the investment that goes into getting them approved versus like the number of treatable cases. Like these companies have to figure out, as their CEO said, how to keep investing in more and more research.
And people were saying like they could see, like the people in the studies were like they could see snowflakes for the first time. They could read for the first time. It's like it was amazing.
Really, yeah, definitely life-altering stuff. Which is that's the like really exciting thing about gene therapy from kind of a broader industry standpoint, is that looks really revolutionary, and the possibilities right now, it looks like we're still in the early days of what we could do with it. So cool. Yeah, we'll keep our eye on gene therapy in 2018. I'm just gonna spin everything into like we'll keep our eye on it through the whole year. So keep your eye on gene therapy in 2018, which transitions us perfectly to our final subject for the week, what we had mentioned earlier in the episode, that is merger, acquisition, drama, rumors, speculation, heating up very early in 2018.
Like major.
Yeah, big time. Big names.
Major rumors.
Real big names. By now,
absurdly major.
You've probably heard some of this by now, but earlier this week, we saw shares of Netflix surge after a note from Citigroup analysts suggested that none other than Apple could be gearing up for a bid for the video streaming company. Stop me if you've heard Apple's going to buy Netflix before. People have been arguing that Apple should use its massive cash pile to the tune of $250 billion to make a major media acquisition for years now. And, video streaming giant Netflix is typically the first choice among speculators. However, it looks like the GOP's tax reform bill, which includes a one-time allowance for companies to repatriate overseas cash for a reduced fee, could be the catalyst needed to finally inspire a major Apple deal. This was kind of the thesis behind the Citigroup note that suggested Apple could be targeting Netflix. The analysts argued that Apple is gearing up to make a major acquisition of either a car company, a video game company, or an entertainment company. The analysts said that there is as high as a 40% likelihood of Apple acquiring Netflix soon. And as I mentioned, they had targeted some other possible industries they could be looking to make a deal in. I think it was about 5% chance of acquiring Tesla, to the tune of 10% chances for the likes of Electronic Arts and Activision Blizzard in that video game space. And Disney was mentioned at like the 20 to 25% likelihood as well.
That's been rumored before.
But I will note that the note was apparently authored prior to Disney's acquisition of Fox's assets. So they were possibly a little bit of outdated info on the likelihood of that deal, as I would assume the price tag just got a lot higher.
Right.
And Disney may no longer be interested in hearing bids. The interesting thing about the note really is that you don't hear much about Netflix's interest in hearing any bids. You don't hear a ton about whether Apple is really talking about this internally or making any external moves that would suggest they're interested in doing this. One thing we do see from the outside from Apple is that the company has been very prone to invest in itself. So recently promising...
Hashtag self-care.
Of course, have made some major deals in the past, picking up Beats by Dre.
Just bought Shazam.
Yeah, not that they're afraid to spend money, of course, but Apple recently promised up to $1 billion to its Apple Music division for the purposes of building out original video content, and its first in-house produced shows are starting to come out soon, maybe even out now. I'm not an iOS guy, so I can't speak on whether they're out 100% now. But
I think that the carpool karaoke show. Well,
that's a great example of one, definitely. And so I guess the kind of thing you have to think about here too is ton of cash, could go buy 5 Netflixes basically.
What about buying Roku?
Certainly an option out there, especially if they wanted to go more into the hardware, you would think. But yeah, one to keep our eye on. I think that Citigroup had said the going price for Netflix would be about a third of Apple's cash pile. So you can spend all cash on Netflix and then still make it out with like 3 more major acquisitions if you wanted to, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see what Reed Hastings and Tim Cook can literally cook up, I guess. That was no pun intended actually there. But we'll see if any more comes out from that 2018. It does like kind of feel like a rumor from like 2015, 2014, because we have been talking about it for years. But Citigroup,
but like the tax bill, like it's like
that's big. That's what saves a lot of money.
It was like, oh, what? Okay, let's like see what we like. What was like rumored back like a few years ago. It's like, oh, this could actually be a possibility. Yeah, and for the idea of keeping cash overseas is a little bit strange to any of our listeners, the idea really is to hold out for something like this, for a tax reform bill that's going to allow one-time repatriation allowances where you literally just saved all that money. It's you can look at billions and billions of dollars saved. And Apple has like a fund set aside in order to pay. Like they're gonna have to pay something in order to like bring the money back, and they have money set aside to pay that. But it's a discount now.
Yeah. So they saved themselves some cash. So it does make sense that now would be the time to make a deal. And Citigroup saying as high as 40% that deal is Netflix. So we'll see. That's almost a coin flip. So we'll see.
Yeah. And we also had some speculation surrounding
this one was fun
Amazon again. Amazon's desire to possibly double down on brick and mortar
emphasis on
retail investments. Yes, possibly. So last year, literally like broke the market with when they bought Whole Foods.
Yes. About $14 billion.
Yeah.
Chump change, I guess.
Yeah, right. Just under 14. The rumors were sparked by Loop, venture co-founder Gene Munster, that is his real name, who recently published a report highlighting 8 predictions for the technology industry this year. So, quote, Target is the ideal offline partner for Amazon for 2 reasons: shared demographic and manageable but comprehensive store count, Munster argued. Getting the timing on this is difficult, but seeing the value of the combination is easy, unquote. So,
Target.
Amazon buying Target, that's what Gene Munster thinks.
Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, you bring up the Whole Foods deal. This, to me, targeting Target. Here I go again with the puns and unintentional. But going after Target right now or 6 months down the line in the year.
It's too soon.
It seems a little bit too soon.
Just the Whole Foods acquisition, they barely completed. Like, it barely went through. And it's not really going that well, if we're being honest. Like, if anyone has gone into a Whole Foods, shelves are empty. There's things aren't in stock. I feel like Amazon does not really know how. I feel like they underestimated what it takes to run an actual brick and mortar store.
Yeah.
And for people
working
just to assume, working out some kinks, but it's they can't. Sure, you can throw in some lockers and some Echo device table, but it's still a grocery store.
Yeah, it's a complicated business.
Yeah,
and to have
for people
to
just to think that you can buy a company like Target.
Yeah,
a beloved Target. Okay, first you take Whole Foods, which has a really dedicated customer base, and to just to go through this upheaval where people go in and you can't find ground beef,
right,
which I went through. You can't find bread, which I went through, and I'm I have to go somewhere else. What? Okay, maybe they figure that out. Stocking issues got solved, but Target is Target.
Yeah. Also has a dedicated fan base of followers.
Clearly, you're talking to a person. And I go in there and I can go in there, as I've said before, and you probably know, you go in there looking for toothpaste and you go out spending $150 on home decor items. It just happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And one of the things we always talk about when we bring up Amazon versus Walmart, and when we talk about Walmart versus Target, these big box retailers, we talk about the ability to leverage real estate. So now that Walmart has really invested in its e-commerce business, we're starting to see the company really pair its giant stores, and a bunch of them, a lot of stores, tons of stores, something insane, 95%, 90% of the American population lives within 20 miles of a Walmart or something, just asinine like that. And so you leverage that with your e-commerce platforms, and you can do things that Amazon can't do because they don't have the real estate. So that's why you get these financial talking heads in, and they're all well, Whole Foods is the real estate in really key areas. Target's the real estate in really key areas. You're seeing this with Munster's manageable but comprehensive store count. Sure, all of that is wonderful and dandy. I will note shared demographics. Same thing we were talking about with Whole Foods. It's the same customers that they're going after.
Yeah.
The Prime people are the Whole Foods people. And sure, that all makes sense, and that's stuff that maybe makes even more sense 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But I think the idea that they would pull the trigger on another major
Huge.
industry-shaking, brick-and-mortar-focused retail acquisition while they're still figuring out how to run the first one that they just got seems a little bit too soon.
Building rockets and,
working on AI.
Building out
cloud
and
stuff. It's
rolling out furniture lines. It just... Yeah. You can only do so much at one time.
On.
There's a lot going on at Amazon, which in trying to figure out where to put their second headquarters,
spend a bunch of money on that.
right. So I 100% respect Jeff Bezos and the vision behind his company, but you can only do so much at one time to make a company work. And figure out Whole Foods first.
Yeah.
I love Whole Foods. I love spending money at Whole Foods.
To give
but
Mr. Bezos...
Don't screw up Target.
To give Mr. Bezos some credit too, we are talking about Gene Munster's comments, and we could very well, Amazon keeps things very under wraps. They don't tell us much.
No.
There's probably a lot of people inside that company who aren't surprised by the fact that Whole Foods is got some
Probably
kinks
not.
to work out.
Yeah.
And again, what we were bringing up with the Apple Netflix deals, we these comments, these predictions, they don't really bring in any sort of, well, a source inside the company tells us that we're having internal chats.
It's like you said before, it's wild speculation.
Right, and that's how a great way to end things, because that's how he started the episode off, is saying we are going to talk about some wildly speculative merger chatter, and I think we wildly speculated today. Always good to get out of your system early in the new year. What's going to happen, what's not going to happen, and I don't think we said anything for sure, which allows us to look back on 2018, recap time 12 months from now, and still say we got it right, regardless
It's like
of what
when
happens.
it's like when the rumors popped up that Amazon was going to buy Nordstrom. It's like I was personally offended, but like, no, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. It's absurd.
Okay, doubling down on just absurd. So we'll see how that prediction works out 12 months from now. Of course, like, all of these rumors are going to happen, and then someone's going to send us back to Saudi a year from now and be like, you guys are idiots.
You guys are idiots. Like, it actually happened.
So if you guys disagree and you think these are surefire rumors that will definitely come true, feel free to shoot us an email at podcast@zax.com. Feel free to shoot us an email if you thought we missed anything, or if you want us to cover a different story. Remember, you can always check out all of our other exclusive audio content at zax.com/podcasts. Please subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you next time on the Zax Friday Finish Line.